Some corporate scandals start with complicated financial schemes. Others start with something much simpler. A shower curtain, not just any shower curtain, a $6,000 shower curtain. And the crazy part is, that wasn't even the most ridiculous thing the CEO bought. This story takes us back to the early 2000s, inside one of the most powerful companies in America at the time, Tyco International. And at the center of it all was a man named Dennis Kozlowski. Now, if you were watching the business world back then, Kozlowski looked like the perfect corporate success story. He had built Tyco into a massive global conglomerate. The company was involved in everything electronics, healthcare, security systems, industrial products. At its peak, Tyco had more than 200,000 employees and operations across dozens of countries. Wall Street loved the company, investors trusted the leadership, and Dennis Kozlowski was widely seen as a brilliant deal-maker. But behind the scenes, something very different was happening. Because while the company kept growing, so did Kozlowski's spending. And not just normal executive spending. We're talking about millions of dollars of company money quietly being used for personal luxury. For example, investigators later discovered that Kozlowski used Tyco funds to renovate his Manhattan apartment. That's where the infamous $6,000 shower curtain came from. But that was just a tiny piece of the puzzle. The apartment renovation itself reportedly cost millions of dollars. There were luxury furnishings, high-end art, and expensive decorations, all quietly billed to the company. And for a while, nobody outside the inner circle seemed to question it. But the spending didn't stop there, not even close. In 2001, Kozlowski decided to throw a birthday party for his wife. Not a normal birthday party, a $2 million birthday party. And the location? The Italian island of Sardinia. Guests were flown in from around the world. Luxury yachts filled the harbor, and the entire event looked less like a birthday party and more like a Hollywood movie set. One of the most bizarre details. There was reportedly an ice sculpture inspired by Michelangelo's David, but this wasn't just decoration. The statue actually poured vodka from its mouth. Yes, really, guests would walk up, hold out their glasses, and vodka would flow straight from the sculpture. It sounds ridiculous, but it happened. And once again, investigators later discovered that a huge portion of the party had been paid for with company funds. At this point, you might be wondering, how did nobody notice? How could millions of dollars just disappear like this? Well, the answer lies in how corporate power works. As CEO, Kozlowski had enormous influence over the company's finances, and many of these payments were disguised as executive compensation or company expenses. On paper, they didn't immediately look suspicious, but eventually, people started asking questions. In 2002, prosecutors began investigating financial activities at Tyco. What they uncovered shocked the business world. Authorities alleged that Kozlowski and others had taken hundreds of millions from the company. Money that was supposed to belong to shareholders. Instead, it was being used to fund extravagant lifestyles. Luxury homes, art collections, jewelry, and yes, a $6,000 shower curtain. The scandal exploded across headlines. Suddenly, the man who had been praised as a brilliant CEO was now being accused of massive corporate fraud. Investors panicked. Tyco's reputation collapsed almost overnight, and Kozlowski soon found himself standing in court. Prosecutors argued that he had essentially treated Tyco like his personal bank account, taking company funds whenever he wanted, and disguising the transactions through complicated financial approvals. Kozlowski's defense team argued something different. They claimed that many of the payments were actually approved compensation packages, but the jury ultimately saw things differently. In 2005, Dennis Kozlowski was convicted of multiple charges, including grand larceny and securities fraud. He was sentenced 2 years in prison. One of the most powerful CEOs in America had fallen. And the Tyco scandal quickly became one of the most famous examples of corporate excess in modern history. But here's the part that makes the story even more interesting. Because scandals like this rarely happen because of just one person. They usually happen because systems fail. Boards don't ask enough questions. Executives gain too much control. And small abuses slowly grow into massive ones. In the case of Tyco, it took years before anyone outside the company truly understood what was happening. By the time the truth emerged, millions of dollars had already been spent, and a global corporation had been dragged into one of the biggest business scandals of the decade. All starting with something as simple and as absurd as a $6,000 shower curtain, and stories like this raise an uncomfortable question about corporate power. Because if a CEO can quietly spend millions of company dollars without anyone noticing for years, what else might still be happening inside companies today?